Hey everyone, welcome back to the Carter the Walrus channel. Today we're diving into a Beatles album that, unless you're an old American fan, might not be super familiar to you. The album is Something New. This North American only release came out during the summer as the Beatles were touring across Canada and the United States. What's really interesting about this album is how it pulls together tracks from different places, creating something of a synthesis between the Beatles album A Hard Day's Night and their EP Long Tall Sally. It's also got something a little unexpected, the German version of I Wanna Hold Your Hand, but more on that later. Something New is made up of just 11 tracks. A lot of these songs aren't what I call A-tier Beatle tunes. These aren't the hits you hear on the radio all the time, or songs non-fans would know off the top of their heads. Honestly, a lot of these tracks fall more into that of B or C-tier Beatles songs. Hidden gems for some, but largely forgotten by most. There is one exception though, and that's Paul McCartney's And I Love Her. Alright, now it's time to break down the tracks on the album. The album kicks off with John Lennon's I'll Cry Instead. Now this is probably one of his most resentful and jealous tracks from the Beatles' early catalog. It's got a biting, cynical edge that John Lennon was known for in his darker moments. Personally, I've always loved this song. It's got this rawness that really connects with me. But I'll be honest, I don't think it works well as an opener for this album. It feels out of place to start with something so inwardly angry. Next up is Things We Said Today, a song written by Paul McCartney. This is another track originally from the Hard Day's Night album. The lyrics here are surprisingly introspective for an early Paul McCartney song, and you can definitely hear the influence of his relationship with Jane Asher. You can sense the tension and insecurity in the song. It's not your typical happy love song. It stands out to me because of that vulnerability. Anytime at All, another Lennon tune, this time from the B-side of the Hard Day's Night release. This one's way more upbeat. It's actually one of John's most positive songs, promising his undying love and devotion no matter what. It's simple but heartfelt. After that comes When I Get Home. And yeah, this one is rough. In my view, it's probably the worst song on the original Hard Day's Night album. The lyrics feel uninspired, like Lennon's just going through the motions on this one. With that being said, it's interesting from a purely historical standpoint as a product of the era, but musically, it's really not great. Next is Slow Down, which again, isn't a song that's particularly well loved or remembered. It's from the Long Tall Sally EP, and I think that's part of the reason why it tends to get overlooked by most modern fans. Despite its bad reputation, I think Lennon's vocal delivery here, combined with Ringo's drumming, gives the song a certain energy that makes it work for me. It's saved by their performances, even if the song itself isn't really a standout. Next, we've got Ringo's cover of Matchbox. And this is probably the worst Beatles song out there. It's so forgettable. Most people have no clue it even exists. Like Slow Down, it's also from the Long Tall Sally EP, which means it kinda gets buried. Not Ringo's finest moment. I'd take the Carl Perkins original any day over this. Okay, now let's get to something I do actually like, and that is Tell Me Why. This is hands down one of my favorite tracks on the album, and probably the best or second best song on Something New. The vocal harmonies are incredible, which really elevate the somewhat basic lyrics. And if you've ever seen the Hard Day's Night movie, you'll probably remember this song from one of the best scenes. Next on this album is And I Love Her, a song written by Paul McCartney. Even if you're not a huge Beatle fan, you've probably heard this one before. It's easily the most famous song on Something New, and honestly, probably the best track here. The version of this song on Something New actually has a different mix than the UK release. Its vocals are single track, which means McCartney's voice has this intimate, raw quality to it. I personally prefer it over the original mix. It feels more real this way, more heartfelt, but that's just my opinion. After that, we've got George Harrison taking the lead on Before This Dance Is Through, I Think I Love You Too. I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. It's a Lennon-McCartney original, but George's laid-back vocal style really adds something here. It's not a highlight of the album by any means, but it's got that youthful, joyful sound to it that makes it fun to listen to. It's a nice little moment of levity. Perhaps this would have served as a better opener to the album than I'll Cry Instead. Next, there's If I Fell, another Lennon track and easily one of my favorites. The lyrics are beautiful and the vocal harmonies between John and Paul are perfect. You can hear Lennon's insecurities all over this song. He's grappling with the fear of falling in love again after being hurt before. Knowing what we do about John's personal life, especially his relationship with his mother, it makes the song hit even harder emotionally. And finally, the album closes with something a little odd. I Wanna Hold Your Hand, but in German. The Beatles re-recorded the vocals in German for this version, and while I get the novelty of it, I've got to be honest, this is a total skip for me. It's fun to hear maybe once, if that, but I would never turn this on for almost any purpose other than, to write a video like this. So that's my view on something new. An interesting little piece of Beatle history that mixes up tracks from A Hard Day's Night and Long Tall Sally. While a lot of these songs might not be the Beatles' best, they still have a lot of charm, and it's cool to see how they are packaged for a North American audience at the height of Beatlemania. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this short little breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.